I hate Los Angeles. Always have. The traffic, the fake smiles, the way everyone talks about their next project like they're changing the world when they're really just selling overpriced juice or peddling another crypto scam. I left that city 30 years ago and never looked back. Built my life in Phoenix, opened a custom motorcycle shop, made enough money to be comfortable without being an asshole about it. So when my phone buzzed at 2 in the morning with a text from my daughter Lana, I knew something was catastrophically wrong. "Dad, I messed up." 3 words. That's all she sent. I called her back immediately. It rang 6 times, then went to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. 3rd time, 4th time, 5th time, nothing. Just her voice, bright and cheerful on the recording, telling me to leave a message and she'd get back to me soon. I didn't leave a message. Instead, I threw on jeans and a jacket, grabbed my wallet, and drove straight to Phoenix Sky Harbor. The first flight to LAX left at 6:15. I bought a ticket at the counter, watching the agent's eyebrows rise at the price. $1,500 for a last-minute ticket. I didn't care. "Any bags to check?" she asked. "No." I had my phone, my wallet, and a growing sense that whatever waited for me in Los Angeles was going to change everything. The flight took 90 minutes. I spent every second of it staring at my phone, willing it to buzz with another message from Lana. Nothing came. I tried calling Brett, her husband, but his phone went straight to voicemail too. His outgoing message was some motivational garbage about living your best life and crushing your goals. I wanted to crush his windpipe. That thought surprised me. I'm not usually a violent guy. I mean, I boxed in my 20s, did pretty well in the amateur circuit, but that was controlled aggression. Sport. The plane landed at 7:43. I pushed past the other passengers, ignoring their annoyed looks, and jogged through the terminal. LAX is a special kind of hell. Endless corridors, crowds of tourists taking selfies, the smell of overpriced coffee and anxiety. I made it to the rideshare pickup area and grabbed the first available car. "Where to?" the driver asked. Young guy, early 20s, listening to something with too much bass. Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. His eyes met mine in the rearview mirror. "Everything okay?" "Just drive." He drove. I'd been to Cedars-Sinai once before, 3 years ago, when Lana had her appendix out. Emergency surgery, but routine. That visit, I'd felt worried but not scared. This time, fear sat in my chest like a stone. The driver dropped me at the main entrance. I didn't tip him, didn't even think about it until I was already through the sliding doors, heading for the information desk. A woman in scrubs looked up at me with the kind of professional smile that dissolves problems without solving them. "Can I help you?" "My daughter, Lana Harper. She texted me that something was wrong. I need to see her." The woman typed on her computer, frowning slightly. "Lana Harper, yes, she's a patient here, but I'm showing family visitation restrictions. I'm her father. I understand, sir, but according to our records, her husband has requested limited visitation, immediate family only, and he needs to approve. I am immediate family. I'm her father." The woman's smile tightened. "Sir, the restriction was put in place by her legal next of kin. That would be her spouse. You'll need to contact him directly to—" "Where is she?" "I can't give you that information without proper authorization." I leaned on the desk, close enough that she leaned back. "My daughter sent me a message at 2 in the morning saying she messed up, and then she stopped answering her phone. I flew here from Phoenix. Now you're going to tell me where she is, or I'm going to start making this everyone's problem." She stared at me for 3 seconds. Then she picked up her phone and spoke quietly to someone. I caught fragments. "Situation at the desk?" "And father is here?" "And yes, I'll wait." A minute later, a security guard appeared. Big guy, probably 6'4", with the kind of build that said he spent his off hours at the gym. He smiled at me. I didn't smile back. "Sir, I understand you're concerned about your daughter, but we need you to follow hospital protocol. Where is she? If you'll just step over here with me, we can... Where the hell is my daughter? My voice came out louder than I intended. Other people in the lobby turned to look. The security guard's smile vanished, replaced by the flat expression of someone ready to escalate. But then a nurse appeared. An older woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She looked at me, then at the security guard, then back at me. "You're Lana's father?" she asked. "Yes." She studied my face for a moment, then nodded. "She's in the ICU, 4th floor, West Wing. But you need to understand she's not conscious right now. She collapsed 2 days ago and..." "What happened?" "Severe dehydration, malnutrition, stress-induced complications, and an untreated infection. She's stable now, but..." I was already walking toward the elevators. The nurse called after me, something about needing to check in first, but I didn't stop. The security guard followed me, his hand hovering near his radio, but the nurse said something to him, and he backed off. The elevator took forever. I watched the numbers climb, 2, 3, 4. The doors opened and I stepped into a hallway that smelled like antiseptic and quiet suffering. The ICU was at the end of the hall. I pushed through the double doors and found myself in a space filled with beeping machines and whispered conversations. A nurse at the central station looked up at me. "Lana Harper," I said. "I'm her father." The nurse hesitated, glancing at a chart. "Sir, there are restrictions." "I know. I don't care. Take me to her." Maybe it was the look on my face. Maybe it was something else. But the nurse stood up and led me down another hallway to a room with glass walls and drawn curtains. "She hasn't had any visitors in 2 days," the nurse said quietly. "Her husband called once to check on her status, but he hasn't been in." "He hasn't been here at all?" "No, sir." Something cold and sharp twisted in my stomach. The nurse pulled back the curtain, and there was Lana. My daughter looked like someone had drained all the color out of her. She lay in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed, with tubes running into her arms and a monitor tracking her heartbeat in jagged green lines. Her face, which had always been so full of life, looked gray and sunken. Her cheekbones stood out too sharp. Her lips were cracked. I stepped closer, my leg suddenly unsteady. "Lana?" She didn't respond. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow but steady. "She's sedated right now," the nurse said from behind me. "The doctors want her to rest while her body recovers. She was severely malnourished when she came in. We're treating the infection with antibiotics, but it's going to take time." "How long has she been like this?" "She was admitted 48 hours ago. A neighbor found her collapsed in her apartment and called 911. 48 hours, 2 days, and Brett hadn't bothered to visit even once." I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. Took me 30 seconds to find Brett's account. His most recent post was from 6 hours ago, a photo of him on a yacht, surrounded by women in bikinis holding a champagne bottle. The caption read, "Living the dream, grateful for every moment. Blessed yacht life, you're never stop grinding." The post had 3,000 likes. I stared at it until the screen blurred. Then I put my phone away and sat down in the chair next to Lana's bed. I took her hand. It felt cold and small, like a child's hand, and I remembered all the times I'd held it when she was little, walking her to school, teaching her to ride a bike, sitting with her in the emergency room that time she broke her wrist falling off the monkey bars. "I'm here," I said, even though she couldn't hear me. "I'm right here." The nurse left. I sat there, holding my daughter's hand, watching the monitors track her fragile heartbeat. An hour passed, maybe 2. Time felt strange in that room, like it moved differently. Then a different nurse came in, younger, carrying a clipboard. She checked the monitors, made some notes, and started to leave. But she paused at the door and looked back at me. "You're her father?" "Yes." "I'm glad you're here. She asked about you when she first woke up. She kept saying she needed to call you. When did she wake up? About 3 hours after she was admitted. She was conscious for maybe 20 minutes, very distressed. Kept asking us not to let anyone sign anything. Sign anything? The nurse nodded. She was pretty out of it, but she was very insistent. She kept saying, "Don't let him sign anything else," over and over. Then she passed out again. Don't let him sign anything else. Did her husband come in during that time? No. Like I said, he hasn't visited at all. But his mother called and spoke to the billing department. The nurse hesitated, glancing at the door like she was checking for supervisors. She requested that we adjust your daughter's care to the basic tier until the family could approve the treatment plan. The basic tier. Yes, essentially, the minimum required by law. No private room, no specialized care beyond emergency intervention. The insurance would have covered more, but... The nurse trailed off. But I understood. Veronica Calloway, Brett's mother, had called the hospital and told them to provide minimal care for my daughter. My daughter, who was lying in the ICU, hooked up to machines that were keeping her alive. "What did you do?" I asked. "We ignored her," the nurse said, a flash of anger in her eyes. "The attending physician overrode the request. We're not in the business of letting patients die because their in-laws are..." She stopped herself. "Sorry, I shouldn't have said that." "Don't apologize. Thank you for ignoring her." The nurse nodded and left. I sat there for another hour, holding Lana's hand, my mind churning through everything I'd just learned. Brett celebrating on a yacht while my daughter fought for her life. Veronica trying to minimize her care. Lana begging them not to let him sign anything. What the hell had happened in the month since the wedding? I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through Lana's social media. Her last post was from 3 weeks ago. A generic photo of a sunset with some inspirational quote about finding peace. Before that, nothing for a month. Before that, sparse posts, all generic, all lacking the personality I knew she had. I switched to text messages. The thread between us was mostly short exchanges, me asking how she was doing, her replying that everything was fine. But now, reading between the lines, I could see something off in her responses. Too brief, too upbeat, too generic. She'd been hiding something from me. I kept scrolling, looking for something, anything that would explain what had happened. And then I found it. A text thread from 4 months ago that she'd deleted, but that still showed up in the cloud backup. Messages to her best friend from college, a girl named Sophie. "He took my bank card again," one message read. "Says I'm spending too much on groceries. He wants me to design the whole branding package for his new project, but won't pay me. Says wives don't charge their husbands. His mom told me I'm embarrassing the family at dinners. I'm not elegant enough. Brett keeps joking about trading me in for an upgrade, in front of his friends. They all laugh. I'm scared he's going to try to take my trust fund. He keeps asking me to sign things." The messages went on. Dozens of them. Hundreds. A chronicle of systematic psychological torture dressed up as marriage. And I hadn't known. I hadn't seen it. Because she'd hidden it from me, probably knowing I'd drive to Los Angeles and tear Brett apart with my bare hands. I felt my jaw clench so hard my teeth ached. The phone buzzed in my hand. A text from Rick Dalton, my old friend from my racing days. We'd ridden together, worked together, gotten into trouble together. "Hey man, you around? Need help with something?" I stared at the message for a moment. Then I typed back, "You still got that truck? And those tools?" His response came immediately. "Always. What's up?" "I'll explain later. How fast can you get to LA?" 6 hours. "What's going on?" "My daughter's in the ICU. Her husband put her there. I need your help making him regret it." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "On my way. Send me the address." I sent him the hospital address and put my phone away. Lana's hand twitched in mine. I looked at her face, hoping she was waking up, but her eyes stayed closed. just a muscle spasm. The machines beeped their steady rhythm. I leaned back in the chair and closed my eyes, trying to organize my thoughts, trying to plan, trying to figure out what came next. I stood up, needing to move, needing to do something. I walked to the window and looked out at Los Angeles spread below, a sprawl of buildings and traffic and millions of people living their lives, unaware that in this room, in this moment, something fundamental had shifted. I'd always thought of myself as a good man, decent, fair, someone who followed the rules and believed in justice and trusted the system to work the way it was supposed to. But standing there, looking at my daughter's reflection in the glass, seeing her fragile form surrounded by machines, I realized that good men don't always win. Decent men get taken advantage of. Fair men watch their children suffer while monsters like Brett Calloway post Instagram photos about living the dream. The system wasn't going to save Lana. The law wasn't going to make this right. Not fast enough. Not completely. So I was going to have to do it myself. I walked back to Lana's bedside and sat down. Took her hand again, and I made her a promise, even though she couldn't hear it. I'm going to fix this. All of it. I'm going to make him pay for every single thing he did to you. I'm going to take everything from him. His money, his reputation, his friends, his future, everything. And when I'm done, he's going to know exactly what it feels like to be powerless. The machines beeped. Lana's chest rose and fell. Outside, Los Angeles kept spinning, and I started planning. I needed information first. I needed to understand Brett's world, his connections, his vulnerabilities. I needed to know exactly how to hurt him in ways that would leave permanent scars. I pulled out my phone and started researching. Brett's Instagram led me to his other social media, which led me to his business ventures, which led me to articles about his real estate investments and lifestyle brand. He'd built a whole empire on the image of success, the handsome young entrepreneur with the beautiful wife, living the California dream. Except his wife was in the ICU and he was too busy partying to notice. I found his company website, Callaway Luxury Properties, premium real estate for discerning clients. I clicked through the listings, noting addresses and prices. Everything was high-end, exclusive, expensive, and everything was tied to Brett's personal brand. That brand was about to become toxic. A doctor came in around 6 in the evening. He introduced himself as Dr. Patterson, looked about 40, and spoke with the careful precision of someone used to delivering bad news. "Your daughter is stable," he said, "but her condition was quite serious when she arrived. The dehydration and malnutrition suggest chronic neglect. The infection appears to have started as something minor, possibly a cut or scrape that went untreated, and then spread because her immune system was compromised. We're treating it aggressively, but she's going to need time to recover." "How much time?" "Weeks, possibly. She'll need to regain strength slowly." "And—" He hesitated. "Mr. Harper, I have to ask, was there any indication that your daughter was in an unsafe living situation?" "Her husband was abusing her," I said flatly. "Not physically, as far as I know, but psychologically. Controlling her finances, isolating her, wearing her down until her body gave out." Dr. Patterson's expression darkened. I suspected something like that. The pattern is consistent with what we see in cases of intimate partner abuse. I've documented everything in her medical records. If she chooses to pursue legal action, she will. Good. In the meantime, I've instructed the staff to restrict all visitors except you. Her husband is not to be admitted to this room unless your daughter specifically requests it while conscious and alert." "Thank you." He left. I sat there until the sky outside turned dark, watching Los Angeles light up like a circuit board. Around 9, I stepped outside for air. The hospital had a small courtyard area where people could sit and pretend they weren't in the middle of a crisis. I found a bench and sat down, breathing in the cool night air. That's when I noticed him. A man in a black jacket standing near the parking garage entrance, partially hidden by a pillar. He was looking at his phone, but his posture was wrong. Too rigid, too alert. And when I shifted position, his eyes flicked toward me for just a second before returning to his phone. I knew that body language. I'd seen it 1,000 times in my boxing days, guys trying to look casual while they sized up their opponents. Someone was watching me. I stood up and walked back toward the hospital entrance, keeping my pace normal. At the door, I glanced back. The man was gone, but I caught a glimpse of him reflected in the glass of a parked car, moving to a different position. Brett had sent someone to keep tabs on me. Good. That meant he was worried. That meant he knew I was here, and he knew it was a problem. I went back inside, back to Lana's room. She looked the same as before, pale, unconscious, fragile, but the monitors showed her vitals were stable. I pulled up a chair and settled in for the night. The nurses brought me a blanket. I didn't sleep much, just dozed in fitful stretches, waking up every time the machines changed their rhythm. At some point in the early morning hours, Lana's eyes opened. Just for a moment. She looked at me, her gaze unfocused and confused, and whispered something I couldn't quite hear. I leaned closer. "Lana? I'm here. You're safe." Her lips moved again. This time I heard it. "Don't let him sign anything else." Then her eyes closed, and she was gone again, pulled back under by sedation and exhaustion. But those words echoed in my mind. Don't let him sign anything else. What had Brett already signed? What was he planning to sign? I spent the rest of the night thinking about it, turning the question over and over until dawn crept through the window and the hospital started its morning routines. Rick texted me at 7. "Just got in. Where are you?" I sent him the room number. 20 minutes later, he appeared in the doorway. Tall, lean, with the kind of weathered face that came from years of working outdoors and not giving a damn what anyone thought. He looked at Lana, then at me, and his expression hardened. "Jesus, Dean." "Yeah. What do you need me to do?" I stood up and led him out into the hallway, far enough from the nurse's station that we could talk privately. "Her husband did this," I said. "Brett Calloway, rich kid, real estate investor, Instagram influencer type. He controlled her money, worked her like a slave, isolated her from everyone. His mother tried to reduce her medical care to nothing. And while she's been lying in the ICU for 2 days, he's been partying on a yacht." Rick's jaw tightened. "You want me to have a conversation with him?" "Not yet. First, I need to get inside his world. I need to see what he's doing, who he's with, what his weak points are. Then I'm going to take everything from him." "How?" "I'm still working that out. But I'm going to need your help. Can you get access to a boat?" "What kind of boat?" "The kind that can get us close to a yacht club without raising suspicion." Rick thought for a moment. "I've got a buddy who runs a marine maintenance company. We could probably borrow one of his workboats." "Why?" "Because I need to get eyes on Brett. I need to see what he's really doing when he thinks no one's watching, and I need to record it." "Recording's legal if you're in a public place," Rick said. "Yacht club's public enough." That's what I figured. We spent the next hour planning. Rick would get the boat and meet me at the marina closest to the yacht club. I'd watch from a distance, gathering information, building a case, not for court, for destruction. At 9, Rick left to make arrangements. I went back to Lana's room and sat with her until noon, when a nurse came in with news that her condition was improving. Her vitals were stronger. Her body was responding to treatment. She'd probably wake up fully sometime in the next 24 hours. "That's good," I said. "That's really good." But even as relief washed through me, I felt that cold fury still burning in my chest. Lana was going to recover, and when she did, she was going to wake up to a world where Brett Calloway had nothing left. I was going to make sure of it. While you're here, hit the hype button. Don't forget to subscribe and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? The marina smelled like salt water, diesel fuel, and money. I stood on the dock at 3 in the afternoon, watching expensive boats bob gently in their slips, while their owners sipped drinks and talked about stock portfolios and upcoming trips to Aspen. The sun beat down hard, reflecting off the water in sharp white flashes that made my eyes ache. Rick's buddy's boat was exactly what we needed. A 30-foot work vessel painted white with faded lettering on the side that read Pacific Marine Services. It looked legitimate enough to belong here, shabby enough that no one would pay attention to it. Rick was already on board when I arrived, checking the engine. He looked up as I climbed down the ladder. "How's she doing?" I asked. "Lana?" "Yeah. Still stable, still sleeping. The nurse said she might wake up tonight." "Good. You ready?" "Yeah." Rick wiped his hands on a rag. "Yacht club's about 15 minutes south. I called ahead, said we were doing routine maintenance checks on some of the boats. They didn't ask questions." "Perfect." Rick started the engine. It coughed once, then settled into a steady rumble. We pulled away from the dock and headed south, following the coastline. The water was choppy today, gray-green and restless. Seagulls circled overhead, their cries sharp and mocking. I sat in the cabin and pulled out my phone, scrolling through Brett's Instagram again. He'd posted 3 times since this morning. A photo of him doing yoga on a paddleboard, a selfie with some motivational caption about crushing Monday, and a video of him jet skiing while EDM music blasted in the background. Every post had thousands of likes. Every comment was some variation of "you're an inspiration" or "goals" or "living the dream." None of them knew his wife was in the ICU. None of them cared. "You see his latest post?" Rick called from the helm. "Yeah." "What a piece of shit." "That's being generous." We reached the yacht club at 3:30. It was exactly the kind of place you'd expect. Pristine white buildings, manicured lawns, boats that cost more than houses. Security was light, just a guard at the gate and some cameras scattered around. Nothing serious. These people relied on exclusivity and reputation to keep out the riffraff, not actual security. Rick steered us toward the maintenance dock. A few workers glanced our way but didn't approach. We tied up and got to work, pretending to check hulls and inspect anchor lines, moving slowly through the marina, getting closer to the yacht Brett had been posting about. It wasn't hard to find. The thing was massive, at least 70 feet long, gleaming white with chrome fixtures that probably cost more than I made in a year. The name painted on the stern. Apex. Of course. Brett would name his yacht something like Apex. I pulled out my phone and started recording video, keeping the camera low, trying to look like I was just checking messages. The yacht's deck was visible from our angle. I could see people moving around, women in bikinis, men in expensive swim trunks, waiters carrying trays of drinks. "Got eyes on him?" Rick asked quietly. "Not yet. Wait." Then Brett appeared, stepping out onto the deck from the cabin below. He wore white shorts and a polo shirt that probably cost $300. His hair was perfectly styled. His teeth were too white when he smiled at the woman following him out, a blonde in a red bikini who definitely wasn't my daughter. I zoomed in with my phone camera, making sure I got a clear shot of his face. Then I panned slightly to catch the woman, the drinks, the casual atmosphere of celebration. Brett put his arm around the woman's waist. She laughed at something he said. They posed for a selfie together, Brett holding his phone up high, both of them smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. My thumb tightened on the phone until the case creaked. "Easy," Rick said from beside me. "I'm fine." "You're not, but I get it. Keep recording." I forced myself to breathe steadily and kept the camera rolling. Over the next 20 minutes, I captured Brett drinking champagne, Brett dancing with the blonde, Brett taking shots with a group of guys who all looked like they'd graduated from the same expensive fraternity. At one point, he stood at the railing and shouted something to the sky, arms spread wide, and his friends cheered. living the dream, grateful for every moment. Meanwhile, Lana was hooked up to machines in a hospital room 4 miles away. "He's got friends," Rick observed. "Money, connections. Taking him down's not going to be easy." "It doesn't have to be easy. It just has to be permanent." Rick nodded slowly. "So what's the play?" "I need to know everything about him. His business, his finances, his relationships, everything. Then I'm going to find the weak points and exploit them until there's nothing left." "You've got a plan?" "I'm building one." A waiter appeared on the yacht's deck, carrying another tray of drinks. Brett grabbed 2 glasses and handed one to the blonde. They clinked glasses. The sound carried across the water, bright and cheerful. I stopped recording and put my phone away. "Let's move closer. I want to hear what they're talking about." We drifted the boat toward the yacht, making it look like we were checking nearby vessels. When we got close enough, I could hear voices drifting down from the deck. "Told her I needed space," Brett was saying. "She got all emotional about it, started crying. I mean, come on, right? It's not like I was asking for a divorce or anything." The blonde laughed. "Women are so dramatic." "Exactly. I'm like, babe, I just need to focus on my career right now. You're always so needy, always asking where I am, what I'm doing. It's exhausting." "Is that why you're here with me?" The blonde's voice was playful, flirtatious. "Maybe." Brett grinned. "Let's just say I'm exploring my options." One of his friends shouted something from inside the cabin. Brett laughed and called back, "Yeah, bring it out. We're celebrating." "Celebrating what?" the blonde asked. "I'm about to close a deal that's going to make me 8 figures, and once I do, I'm upgrading everything. New car, new house, new—" He paused, grinning at her. "New lifestyle." "What about your wife?" Brett shrugged. "What about her? She's got health issues. It's sad, really, but I can't let her problems drag me down. I've got a future to build." I felt my hands curl into fists. Rick grabbed my shoulder. "Don't. I'm not doing anything." "Not yet, but I can see it in your face. We're gathering intel right now. That's all." He was right. I forced myself to relax, to keep listening. Another woman appeared on deck, this one a brunette in a white bikini. "Brett, come do another shot with us." "Hell yes!" Brett jumped up, nearly spilling his drink. "This is the life, people! This is what winning looks like!" His friends cheered. Someone turned up the music. The party continued, loud and obnoxious, while I stood on a maintenance boat 30 feet away, recording everything. We stayed for another hour, gathering as much footage as possible. I got shots of Brett drinking, Brett dancing, Brett kissing the blonde. Not deeply, but enough to show clear romantic interest. I got shots of the yacht's name, the other guests, the expensive bottles of champagne that kept appearing. And I got audio, lots of audio. Brett bragging about his business deals, Brett making crude jokes about women, Brett complaining about how his wife didn't appreciate him, Brett saying, multiple times, that he was going to upgrade his life as soon as his current project closed. By the time we left the marina, I had enough material to burn his reputation to ash. "What are you going to do with that?" Rick asked as we headed back north. "I'm not sure yet. Posting it online might feel good, but it won't actually hurt him. His followers would probably just excuse it as him blowing off steam or something. No, I need to be smarter. I need to use this to destroy his business relationships, his family connections, his entire social structure." "How?" "I'm still working that part out." We got back to the hospital just after 6. I thanked Rick, told him I'd be in touch, and headed up to Lana's room. The nurse at the station smiled at me. "She woke up about an hour ago," she said. "She's still pretty weak, but she's coherent. She's been asking for you." I practically ran down the hallway. Lana was sitting up in bed when I entered, her eyes open and alert. She looked terrible, pale and thin and exhausted. But she was awake. She was alive. "Dad," she said, her voice hoarse. I crossed the room and took her hand. "Hey, kiddo." You came. Of course I came, as soon as you texted me. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you sooner. Don't apologize. None of this is your fault. It is. I married him. I stayed with him even when I knew it was wrong. I kept thinking I could fix it, that I could make it work if I just tried harder. Lana. He took everything from me, Dad. My money, my confidence, my friends. He'd get angry if I talked to anyone without his permission. He'd mock me in front of his friends, say I was boring or stupid or not pretty enough. His mom would tell me I needed to lose weight, change my hair, dress better. They'd make me work on his branding projects, but never pay me. She stopped, wiping at her eyes. I should have left. I know I should have. But I was scared. I didn't know what he'd do. I squeezed her hand gently. It's over now. You're safe. Am I? Because he's going to come here, Dad. He's going to try to convince me to sign papers, to give him access to my trust fund, He's not going to touch your trust fund. I'll make sure of it. How? Because I'm going to destroy him before he gets the chance. Lana stared at me. What? I saw him today, on his yacht, with another woman, celebrating while you were in here fighting for your life. I recorded all of it, and now I'm going to use it to take everything from him, his business, his reputation, his future, all of it. Dad, you can't. He's got lawyers, connections, money. If you go after him, then he'll learn what it's like to be powerless, just like he made you feel. Lana's expression wavered between fear and something else, something that looked almost like hope. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know yet, but I'm going to figure it out, and when I'm done, he's going to regret every single thing he did to you. A nurse came in to check Lana's vitals. I stepped out into the hallway to give them privacy. My phone buzzed with a text from Rick. Found something. Call me. A week passed. Lana settled into my house in Phoenix, slowly recovering her strength. She ate regular meals, slept in late, spent hours on the back porch with a book. Color returned to her face. She started smiling again. But I couldn't settle. Every time my phone buzzed with news about Brett, another investor coming forward, another charge being filed, another article about his fraud, I felt that cold fury burning in my chest. It wasn't enough. None of it was enough. Rick called me on a Thursday morning. You need to see this. What? Brett's trying to make a comeback. He started a new Instagram account, posted some bullshit about learning from mistakes and becoming stronger through adversity. Already has 2,000 followers. I pulled up the account. There he was. Same perfect hair, same expensive clothes, same fake smile. The caption read, "Every setback is a setup for a comeback. I made mistakes, but I'm rebuilding. Stay tuned." Comments were mixed, some supportive, some calling him out, but enough people were buying it. Enough people were willing to give him another chance. He's going to do it again, I said. He's going to scam more people, hurt more women. He hasn't learned anything. So what are you going to do? I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who Brett Calloway is. Not just what he did, but who he is at his core. A predator, a manipulator, a man who will never change. How? I have an idea. But I need your help. I drove to Los Angeles that afternoon. Lana tried to argue with me, saying it wasn't worth it, that Brett was already beaten. But she didn't understand. Men like Brett don't stay beaten. They regroup, rebrand, and start over. Unless someone stops them permanently. Rick met me at a coffee shop in Santa Monica. What's the plan? Brett's trying to rebuild his image. He's going to spin this as a learning experience, claim he's grown as a person, but we both know that's garbage, so I'm going to give an interview. To who? Local news. I've already reached out to a reporter who covered the fraud story. She's interested in hearing from Lana's father. I'm going to tell her everything, the abuse, the manipulation, the hospital, all of it. And I'm going to make sure it's the first thing that comes up when anyone searches Brett's name. That'll destroy any chance he has at a comeback. That's the point. The interview was scheduled for the next morning. I spent the evening preparing, organizing my thoughts, making sure I had all the details right. I wasn't going to exaggerate or lie. I didn't need to. The truth was damning enough. The reporter met me at a park near the beach. Her name was Jennifer Mills, mid-30s, with the sharp eyes of someone who'd seen too much and couldn't unsee it. She set up a camera and sat across from me. "Thank you for agreeing to this," she said. "I know it's not easy to talk about. It needs to be said. Let's start from the beginning. When did you first realize something was wrong?" I told her everything. The middle of the night text, the flight to LA, finding Lana in the ICU, Brett on the yacht, the fake real estate scheme, Veronica trying to reduce medical care, the months of psychological abuse that led to Lana's collapse. Jennifer listened, occasionally asking clarifying questions, but mostly just letting me talk. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "This is going to be a big story," she said. "Brett Calloway still has defenders, people who think he's being unfairly persecuted. This will change that." "Good. Are you prepared for the backlash? Brett's family has lawyers. They'll come after you. Let them." The interview aired 2 days later. Within hours, it was everywhere. News sites picked it up. Social media exploded. Brett's new Instagram account got flooded with comments calling him out, demanding he respond. He didn't. Instead, his account went private again. But Veronica responded. Through her lawyer, she issued a statement calling my interview slanderous and motivated by personal vendetta. She threatened legal action. I responded through Patricia Rosen. "Every word Mr. Harper said is true and can be verified through medical records, court documents, and multiple witnesses. If Mrs. Calloway wishes to challenge that in court, we welcome the opportunity." She didn't follow through. More victims came forward after the interview. Women Brett had dated before Lana, telling similar stories of manipulation and control. Business partners he'd scammed. Friends he'd betrayed. A picture emerged of a man who'd been running the same playbook for years, leaving destruction in his wake. The DA's office added more charges. Brett's bail was revoked. He was arrested and held pending trial. Rick called me when it happened. "He's in county lockup." "How long?" "Until trial. Could be months." "Good." But even locked up, Brett wasn't done. His lawyer released a statement claiming Brett was the real victim, that he'd been driven to desperation by vindictive ex-partners and competitors. That the charges were exaggerated, the evidence circumstantial. It was garbage, but some people believed it. Brett's mother doubled down, giving interviews where she painted her son as misunderstood, claiming Lana had been unstable and manipulative. I watched one of those interviews and felt my anger spike. Veronica sat in her pristine living room, perfectly composed, spinning lies with a smile. "My son made mistakes," she said, "but he's not the monster they're portraying. Lana was troubled. She had mental health issues. Brett tried to help her, but she refused treatment. This whole situation has been blown out of proportion by her father, who never approved of the marriage." I called Patricia immediately. "Can we sue her for defamation?" "We can, but it might not be worth the time and energy. She's desperate. Let her dig her own grave." "I want her to pay for that. She's calling my daughter unstable on national television." "And she'll pay. Public opinion is already turning against her. Give it time." I hated waiting. But Patricia was right. Over the next week, Veronica's interviews backfired spectacularly. Medical professionals called out her claims as false. Lana's college friends came forward, sharing stories of a bright, stable young woman who'd been systematically destroyed by her marriage. Even some of Veronica's own charity board members distanced themselves. The narrative shifted. Brett went from misunderstood entrepreneur to confirmed predator. Veronica went from protective mother to enabler. And through it all, I kept pushing. I gave more interviews. I worked with other victims to organize a public statement. I made sure every news outlet that covered the story had access to the full truth. Brett's trial was set for 3 months out. In the meantime, I focused on Lana's recovery. She was doing better, putting on weight, laughing again, making plans for the future. She'd started designing again, working on freelance projects from my spare bedroom. One afternoon, she came out to the garage where I was working on a motorcycle and sat on a stool nearby. "I saw Veronica's latest interview," she said. "Don't let it get to you. She's lying." "I know, but it still hurts. She was my mother-in-law. I tried so hard to make her like me. That was never going to happen. People like Veronica don't like anyone. They tolerate people they can use and discard everyone else. I should have seen it sooner. You were young and in love. You wanted to believe the best in people. That's not a weakness." She watched me work for a while, then said, "What happens after the trial?" "Brett goes to prison. You move on with your life." "What about you?" I set down my wrench. "What about me?" "You've spent months destroying him. What do you do when it's over?" "I haven't thought about it." "You should. Because you've changed, Dad. You're angrier now, harder. I'm worried about you." "I'm fine." "Are you?" I didn't answer, because she was right. I had changed. The man who'd told his daughter to take the high road, to be the bigger person, to trust in justice, that man was gone. In his place was someone colder, someone willing to cross lines he'd never considered before, and I wasn't sure I wanted to go back. The next week, Patricia called with news. Brett's lawyer is trying to negotiate a plea deal. What kind of deal? He'd plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for a lighter sentence, 2 to 4 years instead of 5 to 10. No. Dean, I understand how you feel, but no. He deserves every day of that maximum sentence. He destroyed my daughter's life. He defrauded dozens of people. He's shown zero remorse. If we let him plead down, he'll be out in 2 years and doing this all over again. The DA might take the deal anyway. It saves time and resources. Then I'll make sure the DA knows that would be a mistake. Can you get me a meeting? I can try. 3 days later, I sat in a conference room with the assistant DA handling Brett's case. Her name was Lauren Torres, early 40s, with the tired expression of someone who'd seen too many criminals walk free on technicalities. "Mr. Harper, I appreciate you coming in," she said. "But you need to understand, plea deals are standard practice. We can't take every case to trial. This isn't every case. Brett Calloway is a serial predator. If you let him plead down, you're telling every other con artist in this city that they can get away with it. We're not letting him get away with it. He'll still serve time. Not enough, not nearly enough." Lauren sighed. "Look, I get it. He hurt your daughter. He hurt a lot of people. But the reality is, trials are expensive and unpredictable. If we go to trial and lose..." "You won't lose. The evidence is overwhelming. Evidence isn't everything. Juries are unpredictable. Defense attorneys are good at creating reasonable doubt. If we take this to trial and Brett walks, he gets nothing. At least with a plea deal, we guarantee some form of justice." I leaned forward. "You know what message that sends? It tells victims that speaking up isn't worth it. That powerful people can buy their way out of consequences. That justice is negotiable. That's not fair. No. What's not fair is my daughter spending a year being psychologically tortured while Brett lived like a king. What's not fair is him sitting in a cell for 2 years and then walking out like nothing happened. What's not fair is giving him the chance to do this again." Lauren was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "If we go to trial, I need your daughter to testify." "She will. It won't be easy. Defense will attack her credibility. They'll bring up the mental health claims, the hospital stay. They'll try to paint her as unstable. She can handle it." "You sure?" I thought about Lana. Stronger now, but still fragile in places. Testifying would mean reliving everything. Facing Brett in court, having her life picked apart by lawyers. But she'd want to do it. I knew she would. "I'm sure. I said. Take it to trial. Make him answer for everything. Lauren studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay, we go to trial. But Mr. Harper, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly. It's already ugly. Now it just gets public. I called Lana that night and told her about the meeting. She was quiet for a while. You want me to testify? She asked finally. Only if you're ready. But yes, I think it's important. Will I have to see him? Yes. Another pause. I don't know if I can. You can. You're stronger than you think. What if I fall apart on the stand? Then you fall apart, and you get back up, because the alternative is letting him win. Lana was quiet for so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, okay, I'll do it. I'll testify. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. The trial was set for late October. In the months leading up to it, I worked with Patricia and Lauren to prepare. We organized evidence, interviewed witnesses, built a timeline of Brett's crimes. Every detail had to be perfect. Every claim had to be backed up with documentation. Rick helped however he could, tracking down people who'd worked with Brett, finding old records, digging up dirt that might be useful. He uncovered more evidence of fraud, more victims, more lies. This guy's entire life was a scam, Rick said one afternoon. Everything about him was fake, even his origin story. He claimed he was self-made, built his business from nothing. But I found his trust fund documents. He inherited $3 million when he turned 21. Of course he did. You think the jury will care? They will when they see how he spent it. Yachts, cars, vacations, all while telling investors he was bootstrapping his business and asking them to take risks with their money. Brett tried one last time to avoid trial. His lawyer filed motions claiming the evidence was obtained illegally, that my interview had poisoned the jury pool, that Brett couldn't get a fair trial in Los Angeles. Every motion was denied. Then, a week before the trial, something unexpected happened. One of Brett's old friends, a guy named Tyler who'd been in some of the yacht club videos, reached out to me. We met at a coffee shop in Santa Monica. I want to testify against Brett, Tyler said. Why? Because I'm tired of pretending. Brett's not who people think he is. He never was. I've known him for 5 years, and the whole time he's been lying, cheating, manipulating. I went along with it because I thought it was harmless. Rich kids being rich kids, you know. But then I heard what he did to your daughter and... He shook his head. That's not harmless. That's evil. What can you tell the court? Everything. The fake business deals. The way he talked about women like they were disposable. How he'd brag about manipulating people into giving him money. I've got text messages, emails, recordings of conversations. He never thought any of us would turn on him. I called Lauren immediately. We have another witness. Who? One of Brett's friends. Has evidence of fraud, manipulation, everything. Can he be trusted? I think so. He seems genuinely disgusted. Bring him in. Let's see what he's got. Tyler's testimony ended up being crucial. He provided details only an insider would know, how Brett structured his scams, who he targeted, how he covered his tracks. More importantly, he humanized the story. He wasn't a victim or a family member. He was someone who'd been on Brett's side and chose to walk away. The trial started on a Monday. The courthouse was packed, journalists, victims, curious onlookers. Brett sat at the defense table in a suit that made him look younger, more innocent. His lawyer, an expensive-looking woman named Sharon Klein, kept her expression neutral. Veronica sat in the front row behind Brett, her face a mask of composed dignity. Lana sat next to me on the prosecution's side. Her hand shook slightly when Brett glanced our way. You okay? I whispered. No, but I'm here. Lauren's opening statement was devastating. She walked the jury through Brett's crimes methodically, coldly, letting the facts speak for themselves. She showed slides of the fake properties, bank records of the stolen money, medical records from Lana's hospital stay. Brett Calloway is a predator, she concluded. He preys on trust, on hope, on love. He sees people not as human beings but as resources to exploit. And when he's done with them, he discards them without a second thought. The evidence will show that the defendant is guilty of fraud, manipulation, and emotional abuse, and I will prove to you that he knew exactly what he was doing every step of the way. Sharon Klein's opening was predictable. She painted Brett as a young entrepreneur who'd made mistakes but meant no harm. She claimed the prosecution was motivated by personal vendetta. She suggested Lana had been unstable before the marriage. It was all smoke and mirrors. But it was effective smoke and mirrors. The first week of trial focused on the fraud. Investors testified about how Brett had convinced them to invest, how he'd shown them fake documents, how their money had disappeared. Lauren presented bank records showing exactly where the money went. Luxury purchases, personal expenses, nothing related to any actual development. Brett sat through it all with his jaw clenched, occasionally whispering to Sharon. Veronica's expression never changed. The second week was worse. Lauren called Tyler to the stand. He testified for 3 hours, laying out Brett's entire operation, the fake business deals, the manipulation tactics, the way Brett talked about his victims behind their backs. Sharon tried to discredit him, suggesting he was jealous of Brett's success, that he had his own motives for testifying. But Tyler didn't crack. He stayed calm, stuck to his story, backed everything up with evidence. By the end of his testimony, several jury members were looking at Brett with open disgust. Then it was Lana's turn. She took the stand on Wednesday morning, wearing a simple blue dress, her hair pulled back. She looked small in the witness chair, younger than her 23 years. Lauren walked her through the marriage gently. How Brett had seemed charming at first, how things had changed after the wedding, how he'd slowly taken control of every aspect of her life. He'd tell me I was spending too much on groceries, Lana said, her voice quiet but steady. So he took my bank card, said he'd manage our finances, but then I had no way to buy anything without asking permission, and if I asked for money, he'd question why I needed it, what I was going to do with it, whether I really deserved it. What about your trust fund? He kept asking me to give him access to it, said it would be easier to manage everything together. I refused. That's when things got worse. How did they get worse? He'd punish me. Not physically, he never hit me, but emotionally. He'd ignore me for days. He'd tell his friends I was crazy, that I had issues. He'd make fun of me at dinners. His mother would join in, criticizing everything about me, my clothes, my hair, my weight. Did you try to leave? Many times, but he'd threatened to destroy me financially. Said he'd tie me up in court for years, make sure I lost everything. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. What happened the day you collapsed? Lana's voice broke slightly. I'd been working on a branding project for his company. For free, because he said wives support their husbands. I'd barely slept in days. I wasn't eating much because I didn't want to ask him for money. I had a cut on my hand that got infected, but I didn't tell anyone because I knew he'd get angry about the medical bills. And then one morning, I just collapsed. I remember hitting the floor, then nothing until I woke up in the hospital. Did Brett visit you in the hospital? No. Did he call? Once, to ask when I'd be discharged because he needed me to finish the branding project. Several jury members exchanged glances. Sharon Klein's cross-examination was brutal. She questioned every detail of Lana's story, suggested she was exaggerating, implied she'd been mentally unstable before meeting Brett. Isn't it true you saw a therapist before you married my client? Sharon asked. Yes. For what? Anxiety. Serious anxiety? Not serious, just normal college stress. But you were medicated? For a few months, then I didn't need it anymore. Until you married Brett? I didn't need medication because of Brett. I needed it to survive Brett. Sharon pressed harder, trying to break Lana down, but Lana held firm. She answered every question calmly, didn't take the bait, stuck to her story. By the time she stepped down from the stand, she was exhausted. But she'd done it. She'd faced Brett in court and told the truth. I was so proud of her I couldn't speak. The prosecution rested 2 days later. Then it was the defense's turn. Sharon called character witnesses, people who claimed Brett was generous, kind, misunderstood. She called business associates who swore he'd never lied to them. She even called Veronica, who testified that her son was a good man who'd made mistakes but didn't deserve to be destroyed. It was all carefully orchestrated, all designed to create reasonable doubt. But Lauren was ready. On cross-examination, she systematically dismantled each witness. The character witnesses admitted they'd lost touch with Brett years ago. The business associates admitted they'd never actually worked directly with him. Veronica admitted she'd tried to reduce Lana's medical care. By the end of the defense's case, they'd only succeeded in making Brett look worse. Closing arguments happened on a Friday. Lauren went first, hammering home the evidence. The defense wants you to believe Brett Calloway is a victim, but the evidence tells a different story. It tells the story of a man who built an empire on lies, who manipulated and abused everyone who trusted him, who showed zero remorse when his actions destroyed lives. Don't let him fool you. Don't let his lawyers fool you. Look at the evidence and see him for what he really is. Sharon's closing was emotional. She talked about presumption of innocence, about the dangers of mob justice, about how easy it is to destroy someone's life with accusations. My client made mistakes, she said, but mistakes aren't crimes. Being a bad husband isn't a crime. Making poor business decisions isn't a crime. The prosecution wants you to punish Brett Calloway for being unlikable, not for being guilty. The jury deliberated for 2 days. I sat in the hallway with Lana, Rick, and Patricia, waiting. Every hour felt like a year. Every time the courtroom door opened, my heart jumped. Finally, on Sunday afternoon, the jury sent word. They'd reached a verdict. We filed back into the courtroom. Brett sat at the defense table, his face pale. Veronica clutched her purse in the front row. The gallery was packed. The judge asked the jury foreman to stand. On the count of fraud in the first degree, how do you find? Guilty. On the count of identity theft, how do you find? Guilty. On the count of financial exploitation, how do you find? Guilty. Down the line it went. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Every count, every charge. The jury had seen through Sharon's smoke and mirrors. Brett's face crumbled. Veronica made a sound like she'd been punched. Sharon just closed her briefcase, already moving on to the next case. The judge set sentencing for 3 weeks out and remanded Brett into custody immediately. He was let out in handcuffs, his expensive suit suddenly looking cheap under the fluorescent lights. Outside the courthouse, journalists swarmed us. Lana hid behind me while I answered questions. Are you satisfied with the verdict? Yes. What do you want to say to Brett Calloway? Nothing. He's not worth my words anymore. What about his mother? She enabled everything he did. She's as guilty as he is, but unlike him, she'll have to live with her conscience. That night, back in Phoenix, Lana and I sat on the back porch. She'd barely spoken since we left the courthouse. It's over, I said finally. Is it? He's going to prison. The annulment's been finalized. You're free. I don't feel free. I feel empty. That's normal. You've been fighting for so long. Now that it's over, you don't know what to do with yourself. What do I do? You heal. You rebuild. You move forward. What about you? What about me? Are you done? I thought about Brett in his cell, waiting for sentencing. I thought about Veronica, disgraced and alone. I thought about all the people who'd trusted Brett and lost everything. Not yet, I said. There's one more thing I need to do. Lana looked at me. Dad, I need to make sure this never happens again. That Brett's name becomes a cautionary tale. That every con artist in America knows what happens when they cross the wrong person. Haven't you done enough? No, not yet. I spent the next 3 weeks preparing for sentencing. I worked with other victims to write impact statements. I organized a media campaign to make sure the story stayed in the news. I contacted every business school and real estate program in California, offering to speak about fraud prevention. Brett Calloway was going to be a case study, a warning, a reminder that eventually predators get caught. Sentencing day arrived. The courtroom was even more packed than before. Lauren recommended the maximum, 10 years. Sharon argued for leniency, 4 years, time already served. The judge listened to impact statements. One investor talked about losing his retirement savings. Another victim, a woman Brett had dated before Lana, described similar abuse. Lana spoke, her voice stronger now, saying she wanted Brett to get help, but also to face real consequences. Then it was my turn. I stood up and faced the judge. Your Honor, Brett Calloway is the worst kind of predator. He doesn't use violence or obvious threats. He uses charm, manipulation, and systematic psychological torture. He finds vulnerable people and exploits them until there's nothing left. My daughter almost died because of him. Other victims lost their life savings, and through it all, he showed zero remorse, zero humanity. If you give him a light sentence, you're telling other predators that this behavior is acceptable, that they'll get a slap on the wrist and move on. Please, Your Honor, make an example of him. Show the world that this kind of cruelty has consequences. The judge took a recess to consider. When he came back, his expression was grave. Mr. Calloway, you have been convicted of multiple counts of fraud, exploitation, and manipulation. The evidence shows a pattern of predatory behavior spanning several years. You've destroyed lives, stolen money, and shown no remorse. This court has a duty to protect society from people like you. Therefore, I'm sentencing you to 8 years in state prison, with no possibility of parole for the first 4 years. Additionally, you are ordered to pay restitution to all victims in an amount to be determined by the court. 8 years. Not the full 10, but close enough. Brett was led away without looking at anyone. Veronica left through a side door, avoiding the press. Outside, reporters asked me how I felt. Relieved, I said, but not satisfied. 8 years isn't enough for what he did, but it's a start. What's next for you? I'm going home. I'm going to help my daughter rebuild her life, and I'm going to make sure everyone remembers Brett Calloway's name for all the wrong reasons. That night, I posted a final statement on social media. Brett Calloway is going to prison for 8 years, but the damage he caused will last much longer. If you're reading this and you've been a victim of someone like Brett, someone who manipulates, controls, and destroys, please know you're not alone. You're not crazy, and it's not your fault. Speak up. Fight back. Don't let them win. The post got shared thousands of times, and in the comments, more victims came forward. Not just Brett's victims, victims of other predators, other con artists, people who'd stayed silent out of fear or shame. One by one, they found their voices, and I realized this was bigger than Brett. This was about changing the culture that let men like him thrive. This was about showing victims they could fight back and win. Rick called me late that night. You did it, man. You actually did it. We did it. Couldn't have done it without you. So what now? You going to keep going after guys like Brett? Maybe. I don't know yet. Right now, I just want to focus on Lana. She okay? She's getting there. Slowly. Good. Tell her I said hi. I will. I hung up and went to check on Lana. She was in her room working on a design project. When I knocked, she looked up and smiled. Hey, Dad. Hey, you doing okay? Yeah, I think I am. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I can breathe. Good. That's good. Thank you for everything. You don't have to keep thanking me. I know, but I want to. You saved my life. You gave me a future. I'll never forget that. I hugged her, feeling the weight of the last few months finally start to lift. It wasn't perfect. Brett was in prison, but he'd eventually get out. Veronica was disgraced, but she still had her money and her connections. The victims were compensated, but some wounds don't heal with money. But it was something. It was justice, imperfect and incomplete, but real. And sometimes, that's enough.